Dark Bleatings, everybody. I am very, very excited. I have alluded a little bit to this coming up to have Ellen Datlow with me today, who, if you're watching this or listening to this, I'm sure you will be familiar with Ellen. But just in case, Ellen is the winner of multiple awards, thanks to an expansive career in editing sci-fi, fantasy, and horror fiction. I'm going to focus a little bit on asking you about your career in horror, Ellen, specifically. Welcome to Happy Go Horror, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Um, I don't know. I'm sure that you must be somewhat aware of this, but your best horror of the year lists create quite a lot of buzz in the bookish spaces. People are very, very excited if they find that they have a story on one of your lists, and especially to make it into your anthologies as well. And I would like to start by asking you about the best horror of the year, Volume 17, uh, that came out in December.
December, I think the date was 6th, I'm not sure, in the United States. Yeah.
Yes, and it will be out now at the time that this goes live in the UK. So yes, January in the UK and a bit earlier in the US. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, because I have read multiple best of anthologies, the Datlow anthologies, I call them in my house, and I noticed that every now and then you have a few recurring authors that have come up in several volumes, some that appeared way back in volume two that have come up in recent years. So I was just wondering. So I was thinking specifically about people like Gemma Files and Rob Shearman, and I was wondering if you think there is a specific quality to the kind of stuff that they put in their writing that hooks you when you read their work, or particularly resonates with you to keep you a fan of them in particular.
Well, the writers who I use regularly are usually writers who are, I think, at the top of their game.
Mhm.
And I really love what they're writing. Rob Shearman doesn't always write horror. Hold on.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, people know him a lot for his Doctor
Right.
Who work.
Right. Okay. So with him, it's only once in a while that I think he writes his horror story that I would
Mhm.
even consider.
Mhm.
There are other people, when you mention in my earlier books, there are people who I've only used once or twice,
Mhm.
partly because they're not writing horror anymore,
Mhm.
or partly because they stopped and then they're starting again. There's
Mhm.
someone, I'm sorry, I'll try not to chew the cough drop, but I'm sucking
Oh,
it.
you're fine.
It's like, you don't want me to start coughing. One writer, for example, Brian Hodge, for a short time, in like maybe 3 or 4 years in a row, he was just writing so much great horror stuff, short stories. And I've known his work since the 80s when he was writing Fidel Abyss, his first novel. I forget the name of it,
Mhm.
Night, maybe. But then he just wrote stories that were brilliant, and then he stopped writing them. And apparently, he says, I mean, he just had a collection out last year that was like an overview of his work, and he said he's finished. It's
Wow.
like, how come? And I was like, it's to me, that's devastating because when a certain period of time he was writing wonderful horror stories, and it's like,
Mhm.
why would you stop? I mean, I hope he doesn't mean it, and I hope that he comes back and starts writing more short fiction and more great horror stories.
Mhm.
And other times people just write one or two stories and maybe they go into a different genre or subgenre,
Mhm.
or story just doesn't hit me. But yeah, certain writers, Gemma has written, I really love what she's writing. Laird Barron writes work that I love. He
Mhm.
hasn't been writing much in the last couple of years. He's been ill. But also he moved more into sword and sorcery, which is kind
Mhm.
of weird. And that's usually to me not horror, it might be dark fantasy.
Mhm.
So it totally depends on the writing. I mean, it's not like a particular writer. I started
Mhm.
publishing Stephen Graham Jones. I think the first story I took for the year's best was called Raphael.
Mhm.
And he is very prolific. Sometimes he was more prolific in short fiction than he is now because he's writing more novels.
Mhm.
But he's really prolific. And some of his stories, he wrote a story for Reactor, which I acquired for, that was not really, it's kind of horror on the edge, Belle of
Mhm.
the Ball. It's a time travel story. So some of the writers who I count on or counted on have changed with their writing. And I may
Yeah.
love it, but it may not be horror. So I'm not sure that really answers your question. It's not. it's story by story. It's
Mhm.
not the writer necessarily. It's what hits me when I'm reading it that particular year.
Okay, so it's more like if the story captures you and it'll be coincidental that it's maybe a writer that you've published before in a best of, but
Yeah, it just seems that,
consistency.
certain writers repeat because I think they're really good and I like what they're working on and what
Yeah,
they're writing for a period of time.
yeah.
So,
I generally every time I pick up an anthology, Ramsey Campbell is in there somewhere, or he's been in a
mhm.
previous edition, or I'll if he ever changes genre, I'm going to be very upset.
Well, he writes really weird stuff. Once in a while, I'd say 1 out of 20 of Ramsey's stories, I cannot understand what they're about. I mean, that's really rare. I mean, but does that ever happen? I mean, sometimes maybe
Yeah,
they're too British. I don't know what they are, but it's like, I have no idea what's going on here. But
yeah.
yeah, he's excellent and he's really writes creepy stuff. But have you come across that at all?
Oh yeah, I find that Ramsey's stories are either I really connect with it, I understand what's happening, and I'm scared. He has a way of just frightening me, which is
Oh yeah.
actually rare because I think I'm a bit desensitized now. Um, but every now and then I pick one up and I'm like, I really enjoyed his writing, but I
What's
that
going
might have been
on?
too weird even for me.
Yeah, and something, and also, of course, the weird overlaps with horror.
Mhm.
Something's weird but not horror, and something's a horror but not weird.
Yes,
I mean,
yeah.
weird fiction is. I wouldn't even say it's a subset of horror because it's just one type of fiction.
Mhm.
It can be horror, but not always.
Yeah.
And of course, Ramsey started writing a lot. He used to write pastiches of Lovecraft. I'm sorry, Jack, my cat, is now putting his paw on my arm, so I'm aware of him,
Just
even
to
though he
let
doesn't.
you know he's there.
No, he's here and he wants to eat, but he's not going to eat for an hour.
Okay.
Um, Jack, you want to show up in the picture? I can pick you up if you want. No.
Oh.
Anyway, so um, I forget what I was saying.
You were talking about Ramsey and the
Ramsey, he
crossover
started
from weird
writing
and
pastiches of Lovecraft. I mean, that's what as a really young man,
Mhm,
I don't know how old he was, but he was pretty young. And that's what he started doing, Lovecraftian pastiches. And then he moved on to his own voice. But
mhm.
yeah, he's been writing decades and he's consistently excellent. And every once in a while, I'll pick a story of his. It totally depends on the story.
Yeah, I'm always amused by how scared he makes me in his stories because he's so pleasant in real life, I find.
Well, most writers are, especially
Yeah.
horror. There are a lot of nice horror writers out there who write really horrific, weird, but horrific and dark stuff, but they're actually nice. I mean, there are people, there are people, I will not name names, who are like splatter punks, people who do really, I think, ugly splatter or body horror. And it turns out they're really nice people, and I'm kind of shocked. It's
Yeah, it's
like, oh,
always the sweetest, softest people that are writing the most savage, disturbing fiction. Um, Something that I really love about your best of the year anthologies is they're so encompassing of the genre as a whole for the whole year because you include the short stories that you enjoyed there, but you also do these lovely overviews of magazines and online content. And I honestly don't know how you have enough hours in the day, even for a whole year, to get through
it's
so many
rough. It's
media.
rough. It's pretty rough. And it's like the thing is I have two readers now. One who reads magazines who's in New York.
Mhm,
She reads magazines that probably won't have horror.
mhm,
I used to read Ellery Queen myself and Alfred Hitchcock and Skim Analog, but now I have her to read that.
mhm,
So if she finds something horrific or dark, she'll send it on to me. And I have someone in um, Washington State who reads e-magazines that are probably not going to have much horror in them, that
mhm.
mostly do mixed genre things. And sometimes the anthologies that I think are not going to be that if I have an e-file of it. So I do have help, but not enough. It's
Yeah.
never enough. So yeah, and I don't know how I do it either. I mean, right now, I mean, usually I'm reading till March
Mhm,
for the year before, and my in-house editor, is very patient with me. I can't believe we actually made the deadline. Last year we were late. I was late. I mean, it came out, I think, in January or something of
mhm.
2025. The current one actually came out on time in December.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm constantly reading for that, and I have other things to do, but you don't, when I tell my readers, you don't have to read every page, every word. If you read something and if it's inappropriate, just skip it.
Hmm.
You know, sometimes I'll do that, but yeah, it's rough, and I do try to cover everything, and I always miss things. There are things that I've missed, that I either didn't know about or couldn't get a copy of
Hmm.
or just forgot, to look at.
Yeah.
That happens too. So it's rough.
I mean, even with a couple of readers, you still are only one human at the end of the day. You can only possibly
Well, I
get
can tell
through
you, I mean,
so
people
much.
want to know how much do I read, and I can give them lists of how many anthologies I've read in a year, how many collections. Now, when I
Hmm.
get a single author collection, I don't read the whole collection unless it's all new stories.
Hmm.
I only read the new stories, and if I'm aware of the writer, I'll know of their reprints, where they were reprinted from, and sometimes I'll remember the stories. But I don't have time to reread anything that's already been published. So I can only read the new stories.
Yeah,
And
I
in
can imagine.
anthologies, there are a lot of, and there's so many more anthologies out than ever before. And some of them are really bad.
Mm.
Some are mediocre, but some are really just bad, badly produced, badly not edited at all,
Mhm.
with no sense of what should be published and what shouldn't. It's like anyone thinks they can edit an anthology and they can't. You know,
No,
it,
it's
it is a question of taste, and I'm
yeah.
lucky. I mean, my taste dovetails with enough people that they read my anthologies.
Mhm.
You know, it's a
Well,
question of taste, but it's also, yes, there are good things and there are really badly done things.
Well, actually, I think that that is something about your anthologies that make them so popular because you have quite a good track record now for, through all the years that you've been doing this kind of work of the quality is consistently high, like the stories that you publish. Um, every now and then there's a story that isn't my cup of tea personally, but I could never say, oh, it's a poor story. It was just not a subgenre that I like very much or
Right.
whatever. But it is always high quality writing consistently across the board. Great variety as well with the subgenres and the
Hmm.
way people are using the way people use their subgenres. I actually wanted to ask you when you're putting together your best ofs um in the so I know you have readers but when you're starting to put together what your favorites are you conscious in that moment of variety, or are you just going with what you think is strong? Because I make a top 10 list every year, and they tend to be like seven novels will be the particular subgenre I liked at the time, so folk horror. So they're not very diverse, my list.
Well, what I do is, as I read during the year, I read short stories. We're talking about mostly the short stories. I don't have time to read that many novels,
Hmm.
but the short story and very few chapbooks and novellas. But the short stories, if I really like something, I will put an asterisk by it, and I will contact the publisher and ask them to send me a Word file. And I have a
Hmm.
list of considering.
Hmm.
And I have, like, by the end of my reading, I usually have two or three times the number of stories that I'm considering that I can use.
Hmm.
So that's when I start rereading and rereading and rereading until I get it down to what I can use, like maybe 100,000 words, 110,000 words the most.
Hmm.
And so and the thing is, if I still like something after three reads, and I know it's pretty damn good,
Hmm.
I do, as I choose things, I am aware of if I have a lot of certain types of stories.
Hmm.
And it has happened, not recently, but it has happened in the past, at least once or twice, that two stories were very similar in tone and place, and they were obviously written by different people who were not talking to each other.
Hmm.
There were two stories in different venues, and I didn't feel comfortable taking both of them. They were just
Yeah.
too similar, but they were equally as good. So what did I do? I finally decided to take the story in the venue that I thought needed more publicity.
Hmm.
No one, the writers have no idea. I mean, no one knows what they are. I mean, only
Hmm.
I know what they were, and it was years ago. All right. But yes, I have to be at least aware of it.
Hmm.
But it's not until the very end when I've taken all the stories and I start ordering them, figuring out the order when I can see, oh my, there are a bunch of these, aren't there? But yes, any editor for anything I'm editing, any anthology,
Mhm.
whether it's an original anthology or a reprint anthology, I have to be aware of what I've got on hand, what I'm going to
Mhm.
take. Because yes, you can get too many on a sub theme or something, and do I really want to do that? I don't know.
Mhm.
Like one time, I I can't remember. It might have been a year or two ago that there were too many. Jack's going at the wire. Sorry, if everything turns off because of him. Um, I think sometimes I just have to be careful that I'm not repeating things too
Mhm.
much. Or I realized that there were a lot of stories about kids in jeopardy.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's just the year, you know? And
Mhm.
if they're different, if they feel different, if they're different points of view, but still about a kid dying or being
Mhm.
taken or whatever, you can still use them. I mean, you basically use your judgment. You
Yeah.
figure out, can I, is this a different enough take to be able to feel comfortable using it in the same anthology?
Yeah. Yeah, because you don't want it to be feel samey to the readers, do you?
Right, no. And there's a way to handle that when you have, I mean, when I did Lovecraft Unbound, I had two stories that took place. I'm sorry, but I really get mixed up between Arctic and Antarctic.
Me
But
too.
I had two stories that took place in the cold places. All
Yes.
right. And what you can do with that, they were different. They were very different.
Mhm.
But I realized there are two ways you can deal with that. You can either put them right next to each other and just put in the reader's
Mhm.
face, or you separate them by a lot. And what I did is separated them by a lot.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but they were both great stories. They were both different, very different takes, but they still took place in the same kind of area, place.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, that's cool. Separate them's a good idea, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, and then let me just give you another example. When Terry Winley and I did a lot of YA anthologies together.
mhm.
And one anthology, and one was a YA anthology, and I don't remember, it might have been After, which
Mhm.
was just dystopia and it was things like that. And I was editing I think it was that anthology. Anyway, I was putting together the order.
Mhm.
But and no, I was actually going over some of the stories to think about it, but not all the stories were in. And I suddenly realized that all the stories were first person, or most of them were.
Oh.
And I don't notice that kind of thing. I mean, but
Mhm.
this jumped out. Once I see something, I can't unsee it. So
Yeah.
it just jumped out at me. And so the few people who hadn't panned it in their stories yet, one of them was Garth Nix, who writes a lot of YA. And I said to him, "What point of view is your story?" And he said, "Why are you getting all of what first person?" And it turns out apparently that's a YA thing, which I didn't know.
Oh, I didn't
And he
know.
said, "Mine is, but it doesn't read like it." I'm
Mhm.
sorry, my phone's ringing, ignore it. It's probably spam.
I didn't know
Uh,
that about YA.
Neither
But
did I till that I mean, I never went over the other YA stories in my other anthologies to see if it was like that.
mhm.
But in that particular anthology, it just jumped out at me. It's like, oh shoot. You know?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah, no, when something jumps out at you like that and you can't unsee it, it's like
Yeah. It's like when I'm editing something and when a lot of writers, even experienced writers, reuse a word or a phrase. Oh, so if I see someone overusing a phrase or a word, once I see it, I cannot unsee it. And I'll say,
Mhm.
you've used this word, you've used the word just 50 times in 10,000 words. Get rid of half of them, the word
Yeah.
or the word, different word that. Sometimes the word that is crucial to a sentence.
Mhm.
Many times it is not.
Mhm.
And when it's overused, it just jumps out at me. And it's like, get rid of all the that, or most of them. But then I said, but tell me where you've gotten rid of them because occasionally you might take one out that I think you need. So
Yeah,
yeah, so that's something to be aware of as you're editing.
I write shorts and I usually finish them, put them away, and then don't look at them again for a month because guaranteed when I read it with fresh eyes, I'll be like, oh, that was my favorite word for the
Oh
week.
yeah, I know that's good. I think every writer should do that, should put away the story for at least a few weeks and then go back to read it and maybe read it aloud. Sometimes you can tell that overusing something or something's you've tripped over something, and notice it when you read it aloud.
Yeah, I noticed that about dialogue. I wrote this play once, and much to my surprise, it was staged, and I was sitting in on rehearsals, and I realized a lot of my dialogue sounded quite unnaturalistic. And I was like, oh, I wrote a play and didn't read it aloud before I turned it into. So
Yes.
that's a good lesson. Um, yeah, on the topic of s similar kinds of stories or similar themes being used, there are two in Best Horror 17 that I was drawn to the body horror of them, but they're so different, completely different. And I don't even know how much you'd even class these as body horror necessarily, but that was just what I picked up on. And there was one called, just for anyone who hasn't read it, The Cleaner by Victoria Dalpe. Have I said her surname correctly?
I
Um,
believe it's Dalpy. Dalp. I think it's
Dalpe, yeah,
not sure if it's
awful.
I've met her and she's lovely, and I'm not sure if it's Dalp or Dalpy.
I'm
Like
ter
something Dalp.
if I've learned a name by reading it, I always mispronounce it. But that one was about a woman who is a cleaner and she goes into properties and cleans up after scary events have unfolded in there. And
Bloody grisly events often.
yes. And then there was another story by Tom Johnstone called Body Worlds, which is about a
Yeah.
couple who've quite on the rocks and they've gone to, oh, is it called Body Worlds? The
Well,
ex
one of these exhibitions, they made
yeah.
that one. I don't know if it actually was called Body Worlds or that's he made that up. But I mean,
Yeah.
yes, I've seen those. When you see bodies flayed and done in pieces, and you
Oh.
see the inside of the body.
Yeah. But I thought that both of those stories used particular types of body horror so effectively, but you'd never put them in the same category because they're worlds
They're very
apart.
different. No,
Yeah.
it hadn't occurred to me that one that the set that the Delpy was Delp
Mhm.
was, but okay, yeah.
That was one of my favorites in there by that was so creepy. It's a great story. Um the other thing I wanted to bring up about we'll move on from the best of anthologies shortly, but I also wanted to talk a little bit about reading those anthologies feels a bit like having conversations with people at a convention because you always have a mixture of well-known authors that you'd find in mainstream publishing, like people like Ramsey. And then quite often there'll be authors from smaller presses. And a lot of the time I find authors through your um,
Mhm.
collected anthologies as well. And I don't really have a question about that. I just really enjoy that about your work because it feels like you really have absorbed quite widely across just the entire genre of fiction. And yeah, once again, I don't know how you find time to get to all of this, but I feel like it's really good representation.
In between everything else I read.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, your bookshelves behind you. Are those your books or is that just your personal reading?
Personal reading, many of which I've read, but not all of which. Um, and unfortunately, I have a storage locker with with cartons of books, my own books
Mhm.
and other books that I need to get rid of because it costs a lot of money to store those books.
Oh,
But yeah, no, the books behind me are my books. And there's a shelf with the books in the corner of the books that I've
I
actually
oh,
edited.
I am in love with
Those books
them.
there, you can't, in that corner, it's like, I don't know how to, it's backwards.
Yeah.
And but in the corner, on my left side, looking towards
Mhm.
this, are my books. And I should have
Wow.
a copy of every book of mine, or almost all there.
That's probably enough books to be classed as a library that you have in your house there.
Too many, yes, yes. And it's like I try to get rid of books and it's really hard. And I try not to buy more books, but every once in a while I do. I usually don't keep many of the books that I review, that I
Hmm.
look at best.
Hmm.
I don't keep anthologies anymore, and I hardly ever keep novels except by some favorite writers or favorite
Hmm.
novels of theirs. But it's still, I don't get rid of enough to make room for them, which is why there are books piled in various places. Uh,
I love it
like
though.
I can't fit that on the shelf. You know?
It's just a travesty. But yeah, no, I love that. I That's my favorite thing to see is bookshelves. I'm always very nosy about other people's bookshelves. And so I just had to ask you. Um, so you have been doing this kind of work for decades now, and I wondered if there are any particular trends in horror that have come up that you find particularly interesting in your time as an editor.
Well, over time, well, in the last 10, 15 years, more women have been writing horror and
Hmm.
been acknowledged writing horror.
Hmm.
And in the last 10 years, maybe 5 to 8 years, more horror is coming to us in translation from
Hmm.
other countries and other languages. And I think that's great. You
Yeah.
know, I think there's a lot of East Asian horror coming. And I don't know, I mean, I don't know what came first, the movies or the stories,
Hmm.
but, we're getting them. And, and Latin American and Central American horror and East Asia, but also the different parts of Asia.
Hmm.
I mean, Japan versus Vietnam. And I
Hmm.
haven't read any Vietnamese horror, but different parts of Asia and the Middle East, we're getting some. There have been at least one or two books. They're not exclusively horror, but they're books of speculative fiction for Palestinian writers and Indian writers. I mean, East Asia Indian and Pakistani. And some indigenous writers from America and it's just, I think that's becoming more prevalent, and I think that's great. It's wide,
Hmm.
the field has been widening up, and so we in the West are learning more about other types of horror.
Yeah.
Not all of it is it's my taste,
Hmm.
but and and I have to really think, okay, is it just not for me? But it's
Hmm.
still horror and it's still good. I mean, it's anything, with
Yeah.
any we all have our own tastes and mine probably has changed over the years.
Hmm.
I mean, I've been doing this a year's best, 21, 31, 40, almost 40 years.
Yeah.
And that's why when I do the summary, I kind of sum up these are the figures. I mean, these are where these stories came from, what
Hmm.
country the writers are from, and how many women, how many men. And that's changed. I mean, it was long, and when I was doing the years best fantasy and horror with Terry Windling, she did the fantasy, I did the horror. Most of the fantasy were female writers, most of the
Hmm.
horror were male writers. That has changed a lot since I've been doing the best of the year. I mean, every year I say this is how many, and they're more or less, but sometimes it's usually around parity.
Hmm.
And even one year there might have been more female writers. I can't remember. So but it's not my choice. It's not I'm saying I want this many type of writer or this country or this
Yeah.
gender or whatever. It's what I like. It's
Yeah.
what I find think is the best of the year. And what comes comes. And I think we're lucky that we're in unfortunately, forget politics, but culturally, I think we're in a wide open field right now, especially for horror.
Yeah, I agree. I notice it because I receive a lot of review requests, and a lot of them are anthologies, and always I find I generally prefer anthologies that have authors from several different countries and walks of life, because I've had this argument with people a few times where you'll get people who go, "Well, what does it matter who the author is? A good horror is good horror." And I'm like, "Yes, but different
Yes and
life
no. Well, yes, but you should know who the authors are.
yeah, and different life experiences like creates different types of horror stories.
Sure.
I've
And
noticed.
class. There's a lot. I mean, class makes a big difference too. I mean, some
Yes.
writers um, are good at writing about class differences.
Hmm.
Don't ask
Yeah.
me to name them, but I mean, Ramsey, I think, can do it, does it, and other writers do too. And I think in England, well, England I mean, America's certainly classist, but I think it's more obvious in England sometimes because of the education system.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I'd say the judgments are made about certain accents and things, so yeah,
yes,
I agree.
I mean, but that's also in the United States. I mean, for years we make judgments about Southern accents. We,
Mhm.
Um, so it happened, but not, I don't think it's as stark.
Mhm.
Well, Southern accent, yes. But other than that, I think England is more disconnected. I mean, I know in publishing people, I mean, I knew someone who became a major editor in publishing, and she was looked down upon because she had the wrong accent, you know.
Oh gosh. It's
Yeah. I mean, that was 20, 30 years ago, and I don't know what it is like now, you know.
yeah, well, I relate to that because I'm a Welsh person and there
I was
are
wondering if I knew you weren't British, I could tell you had an accent. I
yeah, so
had a different accent.
we're next to England, but there are gradients with the Welsh accent, so I think I just about kind of get away with it where I'm not criticized too much. But if I sounded a little bit Welshier, I would yeah, people really turn their nose up at a strong Welsh accent. So,
Mhm. That's
but
funny.
I
Yeah.
think it's just a history of a lot of us are from small mining communities that got thrown
Mhm.
into poverty, and it's just an ingrained, passed down prejudice, I suppose.
Okay. Yeah, it is. Yeah, sure.
Um, do you I noticed a lot of people writing about mental health in horror over the last few years. I particularly enjoy the stories that tend to be written by women, especially if they're talking about motherhood and things. Um,
Mhm.
do you foresee any upcoming trends?
I can never predict. I couldn't do it. I don't know. And there's a lot more political horror. The problem with political horror
Mhm,
is it can be too didactic. Yes, we
mhm,
know these people are evil, but it's like, can you make it a little more subtle? I mean, you want to tell the story first, and which is why I've always been very suspicious of political horror or
mhm,
political fiction, actually, political speculative fiction. If it
mhm.
hits you over the head with the point, you're going to lose the reader, I think.
Yeah,
It's better to sneak under the radar and, maybe the reader doesn't realize what you're saying, but suddenly it's like a whole new world opened up to them.
yeah, that's I much prefer that if I'm reading and then towards the end I'm like, oh, this is about whatever it
Yeah.
is. Um,
Yeah.
I don't like the point being forced down my throat today. I find it insulting, like the author hasn't trusted me to pick up
Right.
the
Well,
message or something.
they're trying to make their point, but they forgot the point of the story.
Yes.
They forgot
Yeah.
the storytelling. You want to entertain. I think the bottom line for any fiction is you want to entertain.
Mhm.
And yes, it's great that you want the reader to think, but that doesn't mean it can't be entertaining to get them to think.
Yeah. Yes, I've put down a few books over the last year especially where I've just felt empty and hollow and dead inside at the end. Like I've had to shut my emotions off because it's so nihilistic and
Yeah,
of
well,
the real
yeah,
world.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I
mean, then the trends that I see that I find really boring after a while. I mean, certain types of tropes, I guess they are. I mean,
Mhm.
when if they and they can only be done well, though. I mean, I remember at some when zombies were really hot in the 80s and 90s. I said I never want to read another zombie story. And
Yeah,
then
you
along came a bunch of other really good ones that were interesting and that did something different.
mhm.
And that could be with any trope. Um, I mean, there was always seemed like there was a British trend of a couple going someplace and hating each other and getting fucked. Excuse me.
Yes. I
But
think
it
that
was really
that's
boring. It's like, no, it's like, stop it already. I can tell these people hate each other. They don't like each other. It's like, why are they even together? Stop it. It's like they're boring. It's like, and we
yeah,
know that they'll be suffering. They're going to be made miserable. But you can still do a good job doing that.
yes, I have read a few really good ones, but I always worry that the undercurrent of because that is I have seen that so much. That is a very British type of story, and I worry
Yeah.
that it comes from this sort of subconscious like xenophobia. It's always people going to a country or a place that just so different. So of course all the
Mhm.
people there are going to be in a cult or they're
Well, that's a different
sacrificing.
story. That's a different kind of story. I guess I'm thinking about the ones that they go to the countryside
Mhm,
and I mean their own country, and things go downhill from there. But yeah, it's
mhm.
usually a cult of some sort,
Yeah,
that
I
gets.
do love a good cult though, I will say. So one of my favorite things when it's done well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I read like at least two novels about trees killing people. It's like, give me a break.
Trees.
Trees, yeah, that they're the monsters. Well, they're environmentally getting revenge. It's like, oh, please stop it already.
Oh, right. Okay, I got you.
Like, no, 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 no. I mean, I started a novel. I will not mention its name, its title, but I knew within like 30 pages what was going to happen. And sure enough, yeah, and the trees
Mhm.
got them and they
Yeah.
deserved it.
It's like
It's like,
you saw
I
that
knew that.
tree,
It's
like
like,
they're
no,
goners.
this is not a surprise, you know? It's like, surprise me, please, you know?
Yeah. If you're gonna do a killer tree, at least provide some shock value to it.
Well, there
Or
was some good
something.
shock value still. It's like, no, I'm gonna kill a tree. When I read for the World Fantasy Award back in 1987 or six, I forget.
Hmm.
And I said, no more Celtic fantasy. I never want to read another Celtic fantasy in my life.
Hmm.
Lifetime. Because that's what we got so many submissions of them.
I can imagine. Yeah, with the review requests that I get in, I'll suddenly get 12 books in a row that um they're all mental health themed or
Romantasy. I'm getting a lot of romantasy. It's like,
oh
please stop.
really?
Yeah, well, and PR releases from publishers, and I don't even answer them anymore. It's like, no, I don't want romantasy. And I
No,
don't
it's
believe that, and I don't want horror, erotic, romantic horror. I don't even know what you call it. It's like, no, if there's a love story, that's one thing. I do not want this crap put into a novel just because you think it's going to sell.
it's yeah, it's not my genre either. I think you read in enough genres, Ellen. It's fine. You haven't got to go into romantasy as well.
Well, when I read novels for the year's best, I have to really be picky as what because I don't have time to read that many. So I
Yeah.
have a handful of what is out there. And I try to read the ones that to me I think will be interesting and there will be horror in a way that I like it.
Yeah. Well, I think you had quite a bit of success with that though, because like I said, the quality across the board with the stories in your best of anthologies are just I was about four stories into Best of Horror 17 and I was like, I think this is probably going to be my favorite anthology of the whole year. Because
Oh,
I it's just because I love an anthology where I just feel like, oh, just one more story, one more, because the last one was so enjoyable. I'm like, oh, go on, and I think you develop a trust with your reader when you hit the nail on the head so many times in a row, I think. So,
I think when you're reading any anthology, if either you're reading one that's mediocre and then you can't stand, you have to take a break between each one because they're so bad,
mhm.
or they're so good that you can't read immediately. You need a break just to digest the good stories, the really good stories, a little bit, you know.
Yeah, I like to stop and make little notes on each story as I go. Because I always think I'll remember them, and if I don't make notes, I'm like, oh no. Because 20 stories later, I have to start rereading to remember again.
Well,
But
that's what I have to do when I'm putting together the table of contents.
yeah.
You know, I'll look at the first page to remind me what the story, and this for any anthology I work on. And the longer the anthology, the harder that gets to juggle. I
Mhm.
mean, when I've done really long anthologies, it gets really hard to juggle all the stories. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. You know, but
Yeah.
with 20 stories, which is the usual
Mhm.
approximate, you can figure out, you can see um, what you want to put where.
Yeah.
But I always have to look at, I usually since the titles don't often tell you what the story's about,
Mhm.
or enough, I have to kind of start looking at the story again, the beginning, just to get a point, see what point of view it is, where it takes
Mhm.
place, who the narrator is, and things like that, and tone, to make sure that they go together in a good way.
Yeah, it flows really nicely. As a reader, I can tell you it's a nice reading experience. As nice as it can be when it's horror, anyway. Um,
Well, the thing is, I mean, to me, when I put people ask me how do I put together the anthology, I mean, to me, the first and last stories are the most important as far as
mhm,
getting the reader interested. You
mhm,
want the first story. I mean, this is even for a year's best because everything's supposed to be the best.
mhm.
But you want a strong story that's not too complicated and
Yeah.
not too, and you just want, but for any anthology, you want to put the first story is going to kind of guide the reader as to where this anthology is going. For a year's
Mhm,
best or non-theme one, it's kind of different,
mhm.
but you still want to start with something like that. And the last story should be what you consider the strongest and longest and maybe the strongest or probably the strongest, or you
Mhm.
might want to have a grace note at the end, a really, really strong story, and then the last one is good and strong but little, kind of
Yeah,
like,
like a little punch to
yeah.
see you out the
Right. And
door.
then everything in the middle, I mean, a lot of it is juggling. It's just juggling.
Mhm.
Well, this go together is that, but it's not science. It's not an exact science putting together the order.
Yeah,
And
it's
also you can't guarantee the reader's going to read anything in order.
oh yeah, I've heard a lot of editors say that they hate that because it puts you put so much work into deciding the order because it's very deliberate, and then people are like,
Mhm.
oh, I just dip in and out, just pick a thing, but
Yeah,
the
so I
story
mean,
don't
I
work.
assume that people will read the way they want to, but I have to assume they're going to read a certain way to put together
Yes,
the order.
yeah. Well, on that note, I wanted to bring up Priya Sharma's story in Night and Day, which was released last year, midway through last
Yes.
year.
Hmm.
Um, I did write down the title, but once again, I've done that thing where I've oh, The Bright Day, that's what it's called. Um,
Hmm.
that so that's the story that opens the day section of Night and Day, and that's about a couple that are they're living in a sort of self-sustainable compound, and then they don't go out in the sun, and it's established like, oh no, the sun's coming up. I thought that was such a it was an excellent story. Um, because I was like, oh, well, what's going on with the sun? Where all of a sudden everyone's like avoiding it. I avoid it at all times. You could probably tell by my complexion, but I
I'm
related.
allergic to it. I don't go out in the sun either. I'm allergic to it. So I
Yeah,
always have to wear a lot of sunblock.
yeah. I prefer the cold, dark months, but yeah, that really opened that section of the book with a bang for me because I'm already afraid of sizzling in the sun, and it was
Hmm.
quite toasty. Um, I loved the what you wrote at the beginning of the day section about we think of light as good and dark as evil, and so flipping that idea of safety in daylight on its head was such an interesting idea for for an anthology concept. I was just wondering when you started thinking about perverting the safety of daylight, why you thought that would make like a good horror topic.
Well, first of all, when I put together the proposal,
Mhm.
I was actually seeing it as a duology, two different
Yes.
books, two separate books, one of
Mhm.
day horror, one of night horror. But I couldn't, I mean, we got one or two offers for that. Well, no, no one wanted to get two anthologies. One publisher did, but they didn't want to pay enough.
Mhm.
So it was Joe Monte at Saga who's the one who thought of the idea of putting them
Mhm.
together as one anthology and having one half and half.
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, it's how did I think of any anthology theme? It just seemed like a good idea, And but yeah, a lot of and that was tough because I had to make sure that I had enough stories that kind of almost balanced the night
Mhm.
and day stories. And at one point, I can't remember. I think I got too many night stories, and I had to ask for people to write some day stories. I
I can
think it's
imagine.
like it's like people, everyone was writing. It's like no, no, or maybe it was day, whatever it was. I had to ask for the opposite because too many people are writing this particular thing. You
Yeah.
know.
I really enjoyed the I liked it as a duology though. I thought because it was really fun to read a section then go to its sort of reverse, and I loved again I found there was a lot of variety in how the themes were handled because some authors went directly with okay, I'm setting this in the day and it's scary and the night is scary whatever, and then some people were like really subtle with
Hmm.
what darkness or light meant in the world of the story. I also really enjoyed Rachel Harrison's Fae, which, for people who haven't read the book, is about a couple and a friend of the couple that go to. Do you say is it Renaissance Fair or Renaissance Fair?
We say Renaissance.
Renaissance. Okay, okay, Renaissance.
But if you
They,
say Renaissance in Britain, in England, that's okay.
they go to a Ren Fair, and
Okay.
yeah, the one character is like walking around in this bright, sunny, hot weather, but being followed by something dark, and it worked great as a metaphor and everything for what's going on in the story. But yeah, there was just no stories were similar at all in that book. Everyone used everything really differently. Um,
Well, I have to say that Clay McClure Chapman's Trash Line is the very first story I bought. And
Oh
that's what it did
gosh.
to start the first one. It would just seem like starting with a bang. In that case, it just was like perfect for
I
the
was
night.
so disturbed by that story.
Well, it's meant to be.
Yeah, it's an excellent story. I haven't I've read one novel by Clay McCloud Chapman and I've only started reading shorts by him over this last year. And he just has a way of uh creeping me out in my own house.
He's very good at that. Yeah. And he does great PR. I mean, when he's in a bookstore, he does videos of himself and he goes
Mhm.
like crazy. It's great. But yeah, Open Your Eyes, I think, is the most recent that I read of his. That was terrific. It was kind of about Fox News.
Oh, the novel. Yeah, I
Yeah.
that was the first thing I ever read of his, and I
It's really pretty disturbing. It's like too close to comfort for comfort.
yeah, and yeah. So I'd be interested in talking to people from the US about that book because obviously I'm British and we're seeing everything happening maybe through a different lens. I don't know, but because we're not living there. But yeah, that book
Mhm.
just made me think, oh God, every just
Poor
get away.
Americans. They're
um,
screwed.
Yes, Clay McCloud Chapman disturbing everyone that encounters his work, but in an entertaining way.
Yes.
um, this is a more general question because I was looking back through your career and there's so much to what you do. And I watched an interview from a while back where you talked about really enjoying actually like editing as in um
Mhm.
like line editing and things like that. And I wondered if the parts of your job that you're most passionate about now are the same as when you started, or if it's changed over time.
Well, that's interesting. First of all, I need to clarify because the British use the word line editing and they mean copy editing.
Yes,
It-
sorry, yes, I knew I messed
no,
up
no, no,
with.
no. I'm not criticizing you. I just want to explain to the
Mhm,
audience that I edited Paul McCauley, three of his novels,
mhm,
and he thought it was like, well, you're copy editing. I said, I'm not copy editing you. That's grammar and spelling. I am line
mhm,
editing you. It's a different process completely. I still love line editing.
mhm,
I love I mean, it's great finding a new story or finding a new writer, and I don't do it enough.
mhm,
I mean, I find new writers when I read for the year's best. When I was working for Omni, I would go after, I mean, that's where I would go after all kinds of writers, like mainstream writers, and I would just write them letters. Hey, write me a story. Once in a
mhm,
while they did. William Burroughs did. I got stories from T. Corrigan Boyle, William Cotswinkle before did E.T. He did mainstream stuff. And um, it was fun. I mean, that was a different process,
mhm,
and I met a lot of writers that way. Joyce Carol Oates, I met that way, and I've worked with her a lot since then. So, I mean, it's great finding new writers and working with writers who you respect and really like.
mhm,
And I love it. Most of the process I like. I even like when I do an anthology, I even enjoy paying my writers.
mhm.
Like even that's fun, and sending out royalties.
Mhm,
But no, I love acquiring new stories, and I love the line editing process.
mhm,
And it makes me go deeper into a story. It's
mhm,
like um, if it's I edit novellas too for tour.com.
mhm,
Novella, I'm not used to. It took me a while. It's taken me a while to get the feel for editing novellas because I'm not a natural novel editor. I'm a short story editor.
mhm,
Novellas are in between. They're like up to 39,000, up to 40,000 words as a novella between like 17.5 and 39.999 are
mhm,
novellas. And a longer novella is complicated, much more
mhm,
complicated than a short story. And so it's taken me a while to get to feel comfortable editing novellas. Um, and they're more complex. And the thing is, the way I edit anything, when I read the first read, if I know I'm taking something,
mhm,
I'll take, or if I like it enough, I will write notes if I notice something that I think needs to be
mhm,
dealt with. And sometimes I end up not taking the story, so I don't bother sending it to the author. But
mhm,
if I decide I like the story, I will, that's the first read. And
Hmm.
then the more you read it, when you're line editing, you have to focus, it's supposed to focus on the line by line work and
Hmm.
not get caught up in the story again. But when the story is really good, it's hard to not get involved again and forget and not focus on the line editing. So that's kind of the challenge when you're actually line editing something that's very good that you really love. To
Yeah.
be able to focus and stay focused on what I'm supposed to be looking at, not don't get involved in the story again. You have to go line by line, see if everything is where it should be and how it should be and if it needs more work.
You,
I'm not sure what the point was.
I was just
But yeah,
asking you about
I
like,
love, I mean, it's
yeah.
part of the process and I love that process.
I do a little bit of editing, freelance, and I have to I do a first read where I'm just reading it, and then the second read is like what I call like the mechanical read where I'm looking for problems, because
Mhm.
I can't do it on a first read because I get too wrapped up in what I'm
Well,
reading.
right. That's the whole thing. You want to get wrapped up. You want to be wrapped up in the story because then it's a good storytelling.
Yeah, yeah. It must feel so nice to because I know writing is a solitary activity, but the second that you've done that and you hand something over to an editor, it becomes a collaboration. And I haven't done much editing. I'm nowhere near your league, Ellen, but I can imagine it just must be a nice feeling if you're doing any sort of developmental stuff to help fix problems or identify problems as they're coming up because it's a big part of making a story stronger where an author's going to be a bit blinkered by what they wrote and what they meant.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't
Well,
know.
the way to do that, I mean, you ask a lot of questions. I mean,
Hmm.
that's what I do when I'm working with someone, whether it's I call it substantive editing rather than developmental.
Hmm.
Substantive editing and then the line edit. Both of those, I'll ask questions.
Hmm.
Say, is that what you meant? And
Hmm.
some writers, it is what they meant. I mean, like sometimes it's the voice.
Hmm.
I mean, when I work with Stephen Graham Jones, his stories are each one is different,
Hmm.
and he has different voices. And sometimes um, I have to ask him, is that wording intentional? And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. But I
Hmm.
have to ask. If it's intentional, then fine, leave it that way. If that's the tone, not tone, if that's the language you want to use, I hesitate to call it slang because it's not slang
Hmm.
really. It's, the way these people are going to talk. It's
Yeah.
the point of view.
Hmm.
It's the voice. It's the
Yeah.
voice. I mean, sometimes it's the voice. You have to distinguish if something sounds wrong. You need to distinguish is it wrong or is it the voice?
Hmm.
And don't mess with the voice.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So, but you ask questions and that's how you find out and you work with the author on that. Yeah.
mhm. It must be easier to work with a receptive author because I've worked with a few people that were a little defensive.
Oh yeah, I have too. Yeah.
But
Sometimes, I mean, I remember I've had arguments with writers.
mhm,
And I would say, I don't understand this line. He said, what's wrong with it? I said, it doesn't make sense. He said, yes,
mhm,
it does. Back and forth, back and forth. And I don't remember what we finally did. I said, I'm sorry, but can you please fix it? It
mhm.
does not make sense to me. But it's hard. It was really difficult to articulate what was wrong with it because he didn't see it. And I
Yeah.
don't know. And it's like, what do you do then? Well, if you bought the story already or love the author or love the story, maybe you'll say, well, let's leave it to the copy editor and see what they say.
Mhm.
We can return to it if the copy editor flags it. Or
Yeah.
also just, would you please fix it? Like, and usually they'll give in.
Yeah. Well, that's what you're hired for. That's
On the
just your
other hand,
job.
it's their story. I don't want to mess
Yeah.
with their story. If that's what they really want to say, as long as they understand that no one's going to understand what they're talking about. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what I have to express to them or explain to them. Okay, you want to leave this, then no one's going to understand it.
Mhm.
Or I don't, maybe I'm crazy. I mean, maybe it's just me. Read it aloud, show it to someone else, but I don't understand this line.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, if it has to be flagged, it has to be flagged, and there's yeah.
And then whatever happens, happens.
Yes, exactly. Are there any authors that you can think of that you kind of noticed early on in their career, maybe with a really great short, and you've got to see them progress and like become a name that people know.
Many of them.
I can, yeah, I was thinking about Eric LaRocca earlier because I used to just be friends with him on Facebook, and I think just because we had mutual writer friends, and then
Mhm.
over the last few years, I've just watched his career just sort of
Mhm.
taking off. It's really nice to see. I
Oh,
love it when that
lovely.
happens.
Sure. Well, I mean, I published William Gibson's first stories. I mean, his first or maybe second professional sale when I was at
Yeah.
Omni. And, and then he stopped writing short stories because he just didn't have time. He was writing novels.
Oh.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that happens far too often, unfortunately. Um, I mean, there are a lot of writers who people I picked for the year's best, and then occasionally ask them for a story for an original anthology.
Mhm.
And that's probably what happened with Gemma Files. I liked her reprints, and then I would start asking for new stories. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, that happened a few times where I solicited stories by people who I took for the year's best, and the stories that they sent me didn't quite work for what I was
Mhm.
working on. But yeah, I mean, there were plenty of writers who I've worked with. From the Nathan Ballingrud, I published his first story, which I didn't realize at the time.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
K.W. Jeter, I published his first story, although he's not known much anymore because he stopped writing. But I commissioned his first story for Omni in a group of short shorts, not realizing it was the first time he'd ever written a short story.
Mhm.
And then he wrote, um, I'm trying to remember some of his novels. Written a bunch of novels. He was writing early punk, maybe
Mhm.
cyberpunk, or steampunk rather, and weird
Yeah.
stuff. I'm thinking Doctor something. I'm trying to remember Dr. Adder, I
Mhm.
think, his early novel. But there are people who I didn't realize was their early work.
Mhm.
You know, it's funny because Stephen Graham Jones sometimes credits me with publishing his stuff early, but he'd been writing for years before. He's been writing for years. He's not like an overnight sensation. I mean, I actually found some of his earlier novels that are kind of mainstreamy, kind of.
Mhm.
And when I have a chance between my one year's best and the next, I kind of have a window of guilty pleasures where I can read
Mhm.
one or two novels that are not the right year.
Mhm. Mhm.
And but at the first time, it's like, okay, this is the first time I noticed his work when I bought Raphael. I don't
Mhm.
remember what year that was. And then I started publishing more of his stories and asking for original stories. And he's a writer who this is a writer like this is gold. You ask them for a story and they'll say, sure, and they'll send you one in 2 weeks.
Oh,
You know,
amazing.
yeah. I mean, someone, if you really need something, I have an emergency, could you write something for me? And it's like, I don't know if Stephen can still do that because he's so tied up with his novels now and novellas,
Mhm.
but he is really prolific. And a writer like that who can write on demand, a good story on demand because you need it to fill a hole or something,
Mhm.
is valuable if someone can
Yeah.
do that.
I have so much of his work to read. I bought a bunch of his novels, but as soon as I heard overnight success being applied to him, and I was like, I bet he's been writing for like
No, he's been
20
writing for
years.
like 20 years at least. I
Yeah.
mean, if you look at his bio or his bibliography, he's been writing for decades.
Yeah.
What's
It's just
interesting about him, though, okay, it's like now when I started reading him, I don't think I knew he was Native American.
mhm,
I'm not sure. Um, but when he started writing novellas for me and short stories, and I think, and then later on, once he wrote The Only Good Indian,
mhm,
and started writing, and also Mapping the Interior. Some certain things he was writing about 5 years ago, 8 years ago, and they were very much on indigenous themes.
mhm,
And I said, that's really interesting you're doing this because the early stuff I read by you it always seemed totally not generic, but I
mhm,
didn't realize they were Native American. He said, well, in my head, they always were,
mhm.
but they didn't show, he didn't push it. He didn't um, emphasize it in a lot of his short fiction. Or
Yeah.
maybe, I can't say about his novels since I didn't read that many. Mongrels was, I
mhm,
love that might have been the earliest not one I read of his. I'm not sure before I read the early one.
mhm.
But so
Yeah.
I mean, so it's also perception is interesting.
mhm,
And now, if I went back and had time to read all his early short work,
Mhm.
I could look at it with a different eye and say, okay, is that obvious? Or did I just not notice it? Or is he writing differently now?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is it's interesting if you're with someone for a part of their career like that and you can see like a progression in how they're representing things or whatever it
Well,
might be.
even now, okay, I've just published The Belle of the Ball, and I don't think it mentions anything. There's no indication that the characters are indigenous. Um, and I have to realize that they probably are, maybe.
Mhm. Yeah.
You
Well,
know, and
that's good for me to know for when I by the time I heard of him, I knew he was
Blackfeet.
yeah. But so I think I'll go in already knowing that, so maybe I'll see. I don't know. That's but that's interesting.
Yeah,
Um
I mean, it is interesting, and yeah, it's just interesting how, yeah.
it's I sometimes get messages through my Happy Go Horror profile on Instagram, and I only ever post book covers and things there. So no, it's not on purpose, but that's just what I put there. But I don't have anything like that identifies me at all. Just it's just my little goatee stuff. And sometimes I
Probably a
get
good thing.
yeah, but sometimes I'll get messages from people that are like, "Oh, hey, dude, thanks for blah 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 blah," and I'm just like, I never feel the need to correct anybody, but
Well, sometimes people use dude for male and female, sometimes,
yeah, I just I've had it a few times where people are like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't know you were a lady," and I'm like, "It doesn't really. It's just it's
Doesn't
a goat.
matter.
It's fine." But it's
Yeah.
I always find it interesting that that's the automatic assumption, and maybe it's just because it's a horror profile and people
Hmm.
still have these
Well, there are a lot
associations.
of automatic assumptions made in the English language that have started to change a little bit. I mean, don't forget when the generic he,
Yeah,
everything was he.
yeah,
And I know I started when I was writing, I don't write fiction, but writing any kind of nonfiction in my summaries, maybe, or
hmm
I would switch. I would start doing she all the time just
hmm
for the hell of it. And then
hmm
sometimes I would just switch he and she, or just do it whichever I felt like, or both, just
yeah,
alternate. And I felt that was really important. And eventually, kind of that caught on a little bit,
hmm
that it's not an automatic he.
yeah,
Everything's male oriented and everything is automatically a male.
hmm
The it defaults to the male pronoun, which is bullshit, which should not happen.
yeah,
Because it is meaningful to
hmm
do that.
yeah,
Learn to just default to the female pronoun all the time,
hmm
or half the time.
yeah. I
And I
think
think that's really important.
I agree. I think it's worth being conscious of the language choices that are automatically slipping out because it's again, it's like an ingrained uh weirdness, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's just the default that we're brought up with.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
certainly mine, I don't know how old you are, but maybe it's changed a little bit since, in your generation.
Well, I don't know. I'm almost 40. I'm 40 on my next birthday. Can't wait because my 30s were definitely better than my 20s, so I'm looking forward to my 40s. Um, I have one last question for you.
Okay.
And this is more specifically about horror than anything else. And I was wondering if there's anything that you think is misunderstood about horror fiction, that you think is worth knowing for people that aren't so much in the horror
Oh,
crowd.
absolutely. That it's not all blood and guts.
Yeah.
The horror, no, seriously. I mean, people outside of our field, too many judge horror by the splatter movies, by the
hmm
slashers.
hmm
And that has been a real problem.
hmm
I think it's important that people outside of our field understand that horror encompasses many, many different types of horror,
hmm
many different things, not just body horror,
hmm
not just, serial killers,
Yeah.
um, all kinds of things. Quiet. I hate the word quiet versus splatterpunk
Yeah.
because that kind of a stupid dichotomy,
hmm
but there's all different kinds of horror, you know?
hmm
And I think that's important. And I would love people who aren't watching this
hmm
to know that, even though hopefully they might occasionally.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, that's still the perception is of what's out there in movies, unfortunately, envelops everyone's, too many people's perception of what horror is. And
Yeah,
I'd like to change.
it's those mainstream horror movies that have done it because my thinking is always yes, but those are mainstream popcorn cinema things. It's not like not that there's anything wrong with liking that, but it's just that it's not representative of the entire genre or even most of the genre, I would say.
Right.
So
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm not sure I would call it mainstream. I'd call it, the extreme horror.
yeah, but it's the kind
Extreme
of stuff.
horror is just one type of horror.
Yeah, it's the kind of stuff that people will go to the movies to see things like Scream. I like Scream, Halloween movies and the Saw movies and things like that. But that's not my personal taste in horror
Mhm.
for myself. So I'm always answering that question, and people ask me about that. I'm like, I don't even like that type. I can talk to you about
I
all
don't go to many horror movies. I go to very few horror movies.
of them. What was the last
Um,
one you saw?
Substance?
Oh,
Wait,
is it good?
wait, the one with the Demi Moore and
Yeah, I haven't seen
is it
it.
called Substance? It's really good.
Yeah,
But I must have seen something since then. That's what just my brain. Um, I don't remember. Well,
maybe that
Sinners, if it's horror, I mean, Sinners is brilliant, but it's like kind of a combination of horror and other stuff.
I'll have to put
So,
that on my list as well. I haven't seen.
oh,
I'm
you
I'm
haven't
quite
seen it's
behind.
brilliant. Oh, Sinners is wonderful.
Okay, maybe I'll watch that on the weekend then. I'm quite behind on my
Sorry that you can't
films.
see it on a big screen because it's really gorgeous.
Oh, well, the TV will do. I'll just turn the lights off and pretend. Just make myself small.
Yes, yes. No, it's really wonderful. I highly recommend it.
Okay,
I can't remember if I've seen, what else I might have seen that would have been considered horror. I can't remember.
okay.
Sorry.
Oh no, that's okay. Now that's two I haven't seen that I can put on my list now. I trust your judgment, so I'm looking forward to those. Um, Thank you so much again for doing this, Alan. This is
You're very welcome.
just such a highlight for me to get to speak to you about your work, being someone that's been reading so much of your work for such a long time. So this is honestly, this has just been really lovely, and I'm sure that everyone watching is going to be really happy to see you and get to
Thank
hear you
you.
talk about your
Thank you.
work. And
Jack's back. Jack is back. He knows it's dinner time.
oh yeah, he's like, "Come
Let me
on
see
now,
if I
you
can
said
pick
an
him up.
hour."
Hold on. Come here, Jack. I'm going to show him off if I can grab him. He's large.
Oh, please do.
Hold on. Jack. Oops. Oh, cut it out. Here, look. Look, there
Oh,
he is.
hello,
My
sir.
monster boy. He's very large. The
Oh my
Vic
goodness.
Sears is not overweight. He's just big. And he's
Oh
going to
my.
bite me. Better take him. Let him go.
Yeah,
He
I'll
doesn't.
let you go. He's getting a little bit bitey there.
He needs
Um,
food.
but I will put links for your website and your last few
Fabulous.
books and
Thank you.
everything in the description. So everyone interested, you can find Ellen very easily and all of her work. And yes, just I can't keep saying thank you, but thank you so much, Ellen. It's been
Thank
a
you so
pleasure.
much for having me on.
And yes, be sure to check out uh I was going to say night. It is night and day and not day and
Night
night,
and
isn't it?
day.
Night and
Yeah.
day. And Best Horror of the Year, Volume 17. I will put individual links for those in the description as well for people who want to find them easily. And yes, I guess I'll say
And
goodbye.
there's so you can see Sophie's tail. There's my other cat.
Oh, I can see a little cat head in the background there as well.
She likes hanging out on the printer. It's time to
Well,
feed them both.
they do know it's feeding time. Okay.
Sophie, you want to
All right.
eat?
All right. So we will say bye, everybody, and our usual
Thank
goatee
you,
sign off.
everybody.
Bye and bleat.